Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Before we get underway, I had a couple of administrative matters to take care of. Are the folks from Vizia here? They're not here? You're here? So they bribed me to say if I announced Vizia, I would get 20 tickets. I have no idea what the tickets are for. And I said to them, look, if I can help men with erectile dysfunction, I'm happy to do my part. And they pointed out that's Viagra, not Vizia. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Vizia, they're the industry's best maintenance software. And I'm sorry. The second piece of business is Steve Morris mentioned to me, I'm talking about situational awareness, and he said, here's the situation. You're the last speaker. Please be aware people are waiting for the bar. And so I didn't think everyone should be affected by that. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to talk a little bit about situational awareness training, and specifically as it relates to employee health and safety. So I think most of you are aware there are 13.5 million injuries a year in the US alone. Cost industry hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of lost productivity, injury costs, worker comp, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of what we think a lot of the industries in the room are missing in terms of employee safety and well-being. So starting with Harvard recently did a study where they estimate the average person spends about 47% of their waking day with their mind wandering. So what does that mean? Worrying about the past, worrying about the future, anxiety, is my boss out to get me? And this is while you're working, right? So not really good for the individual, and certainly not good for business. You combine that with statistics that suggest over 90% of all injuries are related to human error, right? So people don't pay attention, bad things happen, right? Is a big connection. And most business isn't really making that connection about how to help their employees be healthy, happy, and safer, really by being more aware. This is a map of everyone who's aware that our political situation is a mess. I'm kidding. This is a map of injuries by state around the country. And we average about 3.2 injuries for every 100 employees, right? And so you might say that doesn't sound too bad. I grabbed a number of the industries that are in the room here or are serviced by companies in the room. And a lot of us are in industries that have greater injury rates per 100 employees, okay? And so you might think, well, 3 to 5 out of 100, that's not such a big deal, except that the average cost of industry in the US is $38,000. So for every 100 employees you have, you're spending between $150,000 and $300,000, depending on your industry, for the injuries that occur during the course of the year. Now, these are only direct costs. So these are costs related to actual medical cost, workers' comp, and legal. That's it, those 3 categories. It doesn't include indirect costs, which are estimated to be 2 to 3 times higher. So product doesn't ship, lost productivity, absenteeism, having to replace workers, et cetera. So super expensive. When you think about the money you have to earn to pay for this, it's off the charts, right? So if you're in an industry that has a 10% profit margin, you have to earn $1.5 to $3 million just to pay for the injuries that occur for 100 employees, right? If you're in a 5% margin business, you have to earn twice that in terms of revenue, right? So really scary situation. Now, the good news is this clip art was free. The good news is there's a tremendous amount of focus on safety, right, with respect to training programs and processes and governance. I stole that word. I don't even know what it means, but I heard it 5 times in the panel. And it sounds like empowering. Governance. Equipment, safety, measurement, data, analytics, et cetera. Billion-dollar industries popping up around all of this specifically related to safety, right? The theories of accident causation have created a multi-billion-dollar consulting industry around safety. So you have chain of event models, you've got system models, all focused on the causation, right? So you have engineers and scientists working on, is it enforcement, overload, response, all of these different things. My favorite theory of accident causation is combination theory, which is, it could be anything. I thought that would get a bigger laugh. Could be anything. There we go. It was a mic. Then you have a billion-dollar sign industry, right? Reminding employees, hey, think, be safe, and if something goes wrong, it's your fault, right? And this is really interesting. All these things kind of help. Then you have another billion-dollar industry called the stress ball, right? Which is like, hey, if you're stressed, have one of those. By the way, when you give these out, if you say suck it up when you give it to them, they work better. Suck it up. Suck it up. So there's billions of dollars being spent on safety, but the problem is we're not stopping and coming back to the root cause of issues, which is people don't focus. They're stressed. They're anxious. They worry. They come to the workforce with all kinds of built-up stress, okay? Can we show, actually I should ask permission. If anyone would be offended by one swear word, could you either raise your hand or leave? Play the video, fast. Here's how most people show up for work. Oh, fuck! Okay, that was audio. Do we have the video? It's a really good video. The audio kind of gave it away. Oh, fuck! Okay, so now I lied. I said it was going to happen once. We have the actual video now. Okay, let me do the setup again before you play it. This is kind of embarrassing. I'm so glad I'm drinking. So, this is a very short. Oh, fuck! Yeah. For those of you at home, that was a standing ovation. You didn't see it, but kidding aside, employees are showing up today with a tremendous amount of stress in all aspects of their life, right? And the way we're approaching safety is learn better, pay attention, look at signs, the data will take care of things, and it doesn't address the human element. And that human element, again, tells us the vast majority of injuries occur due to human error. People aren't paying attention. They're not learning to focus. In fact, we're actually doing the opposite. So my company focuses on mindfulness and situational awareness training. SAP, oddly enough, is one of the global leaders in bringing mindfulness to their workforce. They are one of the first companies in the world to have a global head of mindfulness. They've trained over 5,000 employees in mindfulness. They've done it in over 20 countries around the world. And so I want to talk a little bit about what is mindfulness, because we think this is one of the ways to help with that safety issue and really help employees take better care of themselves. So in short, it's attention and awareness training, right? We're teaching employees to be calm, cool, and focused in the moment, to relieve their own stress and anxiety, and being able to perform, okay? How many people have heard of mindfulness? Yep. So it's kind of everywhere now. It's on the cover of every major magazine. You've got New World companies bringing it to their employees like Google, Facebook, SAP. You have Old World companies like Ford, Aetna, Walmart even bringing it to their employees, really about helping employees to stay calm, focused, relax their own central nervous system, and be able to perform in the moment. There's a new business book every week coming out about mindfulness, and every major sports team is practicing mindfulness. The last 3 winners of the Super Bowl, the last 3 winners of the World Series, the last 3 winners of the NBA championship are all incorporating mindfulness into their routines so that the athletes can be in the moment, hit the zone more regularly. How many Bronco fans do we have here? Congratulations. Do we have any Patriot fans here? So just an interesting point, mindfulness involves, meditation and focusing on the breath. And Tom Brady is a big meditator, and he needs a little bit less breath than anyone else. What? Sorry, that was a Patriots joke. So the mindfulness has also been called attention training, brain training, and situational awareness training, right? So in 1980, the first research study came out where neuroimaging MRIs started being done on people who are doing mindfulness practice and how it affects their well-being and their performance. So one study in 1980. In 2016, 80 per month are coming out. So over 10,000 studies over the past several years around the health and performance benefits of mindfulness practice. And when you boil that science down, it's really focused on what companies are looking for. And when we speak to companies, we joke a lot that every single company that we work with is looking for faster, cheaper, right? We need more productivity, we need lower costs. That's kind of a given in the global economy. But the science is really focused on the individual, helping individuals with things like focus, memory, self-control, healing time, right? These are all important in terms of safety and people being able to do their job in the moment. It also focuses on things like reducing stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, right? And the science behind all of these categories as they relate to safety is alarming. So something like sleep, if someone misses one good night of sleep, their reaction time drops by about 30%. So instead of getting 8 hours, you get 5 hours one night. You can expect your reaction time to drop by 30%. If you do that for 2 nights, your reaction time will go from about a half of a second to 4 seconds. Okay? So imagine you're operating machinery, you're flying a plane, you're in a dangerous situation, and you're not sleeping well. Well, this happens with everyone, right? Lack of sleep is one of the biggest employee issues that companies that individuals face. So how mindfulness works is pretty straightforward. There's all of the science that I mentioned basically focus in 2 areas. The first area is how the brain naturally works. So our brains all function in a similar way. We go through cycles, okay? So I already mentioned Harvard and other scientists estimate we spend about 50% of our time with the mind wandering, right? Worry, anger, regret, past, future, porn. Okay, write down the names of the people laughing at the porn joke. We'll meet in the bar later. Then we cycle through what's called distracted awareness, okay? And what that is I'm kind of paying attention, but not really, okay? So for anyone who's married, this is where you spend the other 50% of your time. Or at least my wife tells me that. There's a reorientation of attention, which is something happens. Hey, listen, focus. It's like being in class where you immediately come to focus, okay? And we, as a species, spend the least amount of our time in sustained attention, like focused awareness. I'm doing something, nothing's bothering me, I know I'm doing it, and I'm doing it well, okay? So this is a problem. It's not, and once again, it's not good for the individual. It makes for very unhappy people when we worry about things constantly and we're unable to focus. And it makes for bad business when we lose 50% of our time, 50% of our productivity to people who aren't focused, right? And so this is one of the leading causes of injury and why most injury is due to human error. I'm not paying attention, I do something too early, too late, or not at all, and someone gets injured, okay? The other interesting part of science is, and this science goes back to, it started in 1906. They started dissecting people's brains, and what they found is people who have very similar careers build very similar neural pathways, right? In other words, the brain activity is very similar for someone who spends a 20 to 30-year career as their peers. So that's pretty interesting. And in the 40s, they came up with something called the Hebbian theory, which is basically the neurons that fire together wire together, meaning our brain is electrical impulses. The more we do something, the better we get at doing it. Okay, so this is awesome if you're a violinist or a concert pianist, or you're Peyton Manning and you can throw the football 50 yards, right? The brain just gets really good at being able to do it to the point where you don't even have to think about it. The body just does. What most of us spend our time training on and thinking about is actually anxiety, worry, regret, fear, right? And so when we have a little break in the action, our brain immediately goes to that place, okay? Because we've become very good. We've trained our brains to do it. So we're training our brains all the time. The idea behind situational awareness training is how do we train sustained focus, right? So with 5 to 10 minutes a day, several times a week, what we're doing is mimicking how the brain actually works so that the body, you can either use your breath, your heartbeat, pressure points, like your butt in a chair, your feet on the ground, right? Something that's always with you. And you're just focusing, bringing your attention to that. And what you notice is you get distracted again and again and again, because that's what the brain does. And you bring your attention back to focus, right? 5 or 10 minutes a day. That's not what the situational awareness training is about. That little bit of practice is for the other 24 hours of your day, right? So we're actually training the brain to be focused, to sustain attention in 5 and 10 minute practice periods, so that during the course of the day, we can do that with relationships, in doing our job, in high-risk situations. Okay? So we talk to companies all around the world about attention training, really helping employees with their health, their happiness, their engagement, their focus, and how that adds up to helping with injuries. Okay? The reason big business cares, and I think you've heard about some of this yesterday as well, is it's a massive issue. Stress is a massive cost in the United States, right? So people not being able to focus, remain calm, cool, and collected, and make good decisions is the leading cause of injury. And the problem is it's getting worse. So these things are the best stress delivery mechanisms ever invented, right? And they get better twice a year, right? Faster, cheaper, more memory, global connectivity, right? I don't know about you, but mine only delivers bad news. Like, I get bad news with a quickness. No one ever sends me a note saying, like, you're awesome, life is good. To make matters worse, so the brain's not really equipped for that, right? So the pace of technology is getting better constantly. The human brain hasn't changed in about 3,000 years. Like, we're not equipped to deal with it. To make matter worse, we're now doing this on the job. Walking into traffic, driving and texting, driving our forklift into product, right? Taking selfies on an airplane. All of these things happened last year where people died or were injured, right? And you can joke about it, but people are in dangerous situations, in high-pressure jobs, are filling the gap, right? That little worry period where the mind goes to worry, they're filling it with this kind of stuff, okay? And it's costing business a tremendous amount of money. Thanks to the folks at SAP, you can get access to our 3 training programs for free as part of your ticket to the event. If you want to take a picture of that, it'll show you how to sign up. What we offer is 3 programs. One is mindfulness training, really to help relieve stress and improve performance. We have a similar program for teenagers. If you have a teenager, have them download this and you're welcome. Getting these kind of tools, these life tools into the hands of a teenager makes all the difference when they're going through stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and so forth. And then the last program, also based in these kind of situational awareness practices, is emotional intelligence and leadership from the folks at Search Inside Yourself. And that's all about being able to be in the moment to be a better leader, right? And how your own reactions create stress, how your own actions as a leader create the triggers that stress your employees out so that they can't focus. Okay. So that's kind of it. We have, I think, 3 minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions about situational awareness training, about mindfulness, about Manning's retirement. No questions? One question, yes.
You know, it seems to... one of these. Now I have 2.
Is your question related to this product?
Not that one in particular. It seems to make perfect sense what you're saying. Like, it's like obvious. It's like we as humanoids have just kind of skipped over that, and we aren't being mindful. We're not paying attention in a really kind of a perverse way.
It is. In my previous role, I was the global COO of a 50,000 person organization. And if someone said like, hey, you should, you're stressed, check out mindfulness. I'd be like, what are you, crazy? Like, that's not for me, right? Something like hippie nonsense, right? What brought me into it was like a life crisis, right? I had a career that was going like this, right? Our business was doing fantastic. I was traveling around the world, making more money than I ever thought I could. Like, life was just great. And on my personal life was going like this, right? Working 12-hour days, traveling 70% of the time. I hit 40, my back went out 3 times in a year. It took me 5 years to recover. I developed insomnia, I developed asthma, right? So I was the global COO. My job description was like fly around the world and stress people out, right? At the same time, I lost 2 siblings to drug addiction, right? And so talk about like, how do you show up, right? And my story's not that different from, everyone has major issues, major traumas in their life. And we just wake up and we do what happened in that video. And it is common sense. What brought me to it was the science, right? My doctors, check it out. You've been dealing with chronic back pain, either spinal fusion or you need some alternative solutions, right? And so our goal is really to get these kind of techniques out to people before they hit crisis and just recognize the pace of living is not going to slow down. Like, you think it's hard today, 15 years from now, it's getting worse. Anyway, we timed that perfectly. Thank you so much, everyone.